Welcome back. This is day 3 of learning Python for data science and machine learning, and in this video we will take a look at the Python numbers or Python numeric systems, numeric data type. In the previous video we have seen the basic fundamental of Python's casting, data types, indentation and all the necessary things that are required to get started. Now in this video we will be looking forward to Python numbers or Python numeric data types. So Python numerics or Python numbers number are of three types: integer, float and complex. Suppose x, this is an integer without any decimal point, and this is float with decimal point, and complex number is any number which has some imaginary number attached to the digit or integers. So this is the three important numeric types of Python, and we will this is a complex number. So this is how you get the data type of any number. Moving on to integer. So integer is a whole number. It can be positive or negative, but it shouldn't be a decimal number, and it can be of any length. So let's take few examples. A 43, B, it could be like any number as long as it is not a decimal number, otherwise it will consider as float. C, let's take a negative 4. So these are all the integers type. Let's print one by one. So let's run it. So as you can see, all the variables contain the same data type of type int or integers, and no matter the length of the integers, as long as it is without decimal point, it can be considered as a integer or int point. So this is an int, class int and class int. Moving on to float. So float contents of float is similar to integer, except that it has a decimal point in it to differentiate it from float. And if you can see the example, like say D 1 4 4 5 6 7 A, this would be negative, let's say this 30.534. So let's print the data type Let's run it. As you can see, all the variables from D to F are of float data type, and it contains the decimal point in each of the values, whether it is positive or negative. It is a float data type, which can be identified using the decimal point. Moving on to complex number. So complex numbers are written with a j as an imaginary part in the value with integers or float. For example, g this this is an imaginary number with a j at the last or at the end. 5 to 2 to 4 j, and 5 4 minus 34 j. Copy this and change the variable here. Repeat the steps. Now run it. As you can see, all the numbers are of imaginary data type. This is how you identify a number from complex number or floating data type or float number. We have learned the three important data type of numeric system or numeric types. Now we will see how we can use the feature of type or typed conversion or casting to convert from one data type to another data type. So it is a very important features we need to know in Python, the ability to convert one data type to another data type using the casting or conversion method or function. So for example, converting the data type from one type to another. So j, let's say this is 1 to 24. This is 57.64. So let's write another number, imaginary number, or you can say complex number, and lastly integers. So we cannot calculate or we cannot do any mathematical operations without converting the data type of one integers to complex or float. So we need to convert, or we need to cast the data type if you want to do some mathematical calculations. So let's convert first from integer to float. Convert int or integer to float. Here floating data types means the number or integer with decimals point. So let's a type, sorry, don't type, there will be from integer to float, so we will type float in order to convert the integer to float. So j is the integer, b, now convert float to int. This is if in order to convert float to int, we need to use the int casting. Here k is integer, float. Here j is integer. Convert string to int. Int m. Now let's run it. As you can see, the data type of j, k, l, m before the conversions are as usual. This is an integer, it's a float, it's a complex number, and it is a string number. But after the conversion, print data types of let's run it again. Argument must be a string, a bit like object, or a real, not a complex. See, we got an error at line number 13. Must be string, a bit like, oh, looks like we cannot convert a complex or imaginary number to integer. But one thing we can do it, we can convert the integer to complex number. So convert integer to complex type. So you can just complex and change the integer value j. Now let's run it. Now error has been gone. Now as you can see, we were able to convert the integer to float, from float to integer, and from int there should be j again, from integer to complex number, and from string to integer number. Let's print these conversions first. We have to just, and this is how the conversions look like. Lastly, we will generate some random number using a module called import random. So we have to import. Python doesn't have random functions to make randoms number, but Python has a built-in module called random that can be used to make a random number. So we will take a look here. Example, import the random module and generate a random number between integer 1 to 10. So in order to generate a random number, you have to pick two numbers or pick two integers or float, whatever you want, to generate a random number between those numbers. So for that we need to import random, and then we have to store the number random number random to range, and first number will be the initial number and last number will be the ending number. Now let's print the random number generated between 1 to 10 is random number. Let's run it. Looks like we got an error. Let me see. Okay, there is a typo. There should be range, and now run it again. Yeah, yes, you can see the random number has been generated between the number 1 to 10. So let me run it again to verify if it is a random number that it is generating or just a number. As you can see, every time I run this code, it generates, because the number to be generated randomly, we have to increase our ending number or last number so that more random number could be generated from those numbers. So if you run it over and over again, you can see there are more magnitude of random numbers being generated every time I click run. So this is it for these guys today, and see you in the next video.